Hello guys, welcome back to Nocode Diary. Let's create some APIs for a to-do list app, right? So I am in my workspace. I am logged into my account. I have created a name for the workspace called To-Do app, and I also not decided on what to connect with the Xano, right? And I am also checking that I want authentication for me for the sign up, login, and endpoints. So once I continue, the workspace will be created. So for the workspace, for the to-do app, we will first create the database. So in the database, we already have a user database. If you can see, we'll create a new database, enter data manually. The table name will be called to-dos, and I will give the primary key as sequential for now. And do you want to add basic CRUD operations, right? So here Xano will create, read, update, and delete endpoints for us. If you check this, if not, we have to create it manually, right? So I am telling that please do it for me, right? So I'll add the table. And in the table, what are the things I want, right? So I want a text which will say what to do it is, and I also want whether it is completed or not, right? So Xana has already given us an ID and created it. I will add a new value. So here you can see there are a lot of data types like text, integer, UUID, object, table reference, booleans, and all those things. So I'll create a text value called to do, and to do whether is it required, I'll say yes. Structure will be single, default value is nothing. Do you want any formatting or all? I don't want anything right now, right? So I will save. I have my to do and I will create a boolean. So boolean is whether it is either true or false, right? So for boolean I will say whether the to do is completed or not. Default value would be false and I will save it, right? So I have done my database. So if you don't know, database is something like a spreadsheet. So here if you can see, I have a to do and I also have if it is completed or not, right? So in spreadsheet you add everything, this everything as manually. So let's say I want to get a new phone this year, right? And I will say that this is currently pending. So these all are how we'll do manually, right? So let's say if the laptop is repaired, I will say it is completed. But in APIs or in databases, here we are doing it manually. In the databases, we will do it programmatically or via the APIs. Now I'll go to the API and I will in my authentication group. If you see, we already have all the things for us, right? So uh, you remember we have checked that we want CRUD operations, right? So it is getting to-dos, it is like query all the to-dos from your database, like creating a new data to-do in your database, deleting a to-do in your database, getting a to-do by its ID, like get uh, single to-do from its ID, right? And also patch is like if you want to update any and all those things, right? So uh, now currently we don't have any to-do. So if you go to the database, we don't have any to-dos. So let's say we will create a new to-do, right? So if you see, I am clicking on the post database. So uh, I will explain you, if you don't know, I will explain you this what is post and all those things in a later video. But post is like you are posting it to the database, and get is like you are getting from the database, like as simple as possible. So I'm going into the post to do because I want to create a new to do, right? So if you see here, we have the input layer. In the input layer, we have something called text, and we also have something called bool, right? And in the function stack, what it is doing is, if you see, it's adding a record to our to-do database, and it is updating that ID is ID, then created is the timestamp is now, the to-do is the to-do which we have from the input. So if you can see here, the input is highlighted, right? And completed also input. So if I publish and let's say if I want to, sorry, so if I want to run and deploy this, we can create multiple to-dos, right? So by default, which we selected, right, completed will be false. To do, let's say, get the laptop repaired today. So let's say I run this command. It's a success. It is giving us an ID 1 and created is the timestamp which we are currently, and to do and completed is false. So now if we go to the database and if we see, there should be a to do, right? Now let's say if I want to get that to do, I will go to the get command. If you see here, there are no inputs, but in the function stack, it is saying that query all records from to dos, right? So uh, these all things are there. So if I run and deploy here, and if I run, it will say it will get our to dos. There are only one to do, and we'll get one to do. Let's say if we go and create multiple to dos here, let's say we'll create couple of to dos. We'll go to the post API and we'll say we'll create couple of to dos. So get the laptop repaired, we'll say get some milk, get a phone this year, right? So now we have created three to-dos, and if we go to the get to-do API, we need we have to get three to-dos from here, right? So if you see, there are three to-dos. And let's say if I want to delete any to do, it is asking me to input an integer or the to do's ID into it. So let's say if I want to delete the first to do, which is the get the laptop repaired, right? So if I run it, it should get success. And if you go to the database and if you see to do's, the get some laptop repair is done. Now let's say if you go to patch, let's say if I want to get the to do by one, let's say if I want to get the third to do, which is milk. So get a phone this year, the third to do is done, right? So if you can see, we have these all endpoints which are created by Xano.